privileged to have Christian join us. And he's a man who obviously, or I think probably needs no introduction, but I also feel it would probably be doing him an injustice not to actually just reflect on Christian and what he's been doing at the club. So before I welcome in, probably just wanted to recap some interesting details and stats that Jonathan Birchall had shared with me. So thank you, Jonathan. I think we may all remember that Christian scored on his debut friendly against Wimbledon, at which point we thought we had a dynamo goal-scoring midfielder. He obviously scored the other goal that occurred on the famous first Premier League day. He's our second most capped player while being at Brentford, and he probably needs to have some words with Matthias Jensen about that, as that's who he's currently competing with. So far this season, he has the fifth most tackles in the Premier League, but it's still a fair way to go. So come on, Christian, you can make that top spot. And he's also now played more games for Brentford than any other club that he's ever previously played for. And so on that note, I hope that Christian is there and can now join us.
Hey guys, I hope the sound is good and you can all see me.
I can hear you, Christian, so thank you for joining us. We've got a few questions, so hopefully we can run through that and hear some of your perspectives. But I just want to start by really saying it's been a challenging season so far, I guess, for many reasons. How's everyone doing at the moment?
I think everyone is doing well. I think we are starting to see a team coming together now again after a rough spell, I would say. The last month and a half has been really tough, especially when you look at the results, but also at our list of injuries. I think up until that point, where it all started, I guess against Sheffield, I thought we played a fantastic season. We had 19 points after 14 games without David Raya, which we lost, Ivan Toney, which was our top scorer, best player, arguably. We lost our captain last year as well, Pontus Jansson, who was a big character, both on and off the pitch. Rico Henry, Aaron Hickey, and I could keep going. But we still managed to have a lot of points in those 14 games. So up until that point, I thought it was probably the best start so far in all of the 3 seasons. But yeah, the last 8 games or so has been tough for us result-wise, and thank God we got a really good win in the weekend. That was well needed for everyone in and around the club.
No, I was really pleased because I thought I might put you in a better mood for this interview, so I was doubly delighted. Yeah. And you mentioned injuries. I guess, can we ask how your ankle is? How's your injury?
My ankle is really good. I trained with the team fully today, so I obviously expected the worst when the tackle occurred. It was quite a nasty challenge, and but I've managed to heal fairly quickly and should be ready and available for the Tottenham game.
Great. And then if I turn to a few questions from some of our members, I think we've got Ian Blackham, Anne Ayres, Jacob Olsen, who are really asking about, has it really been frustrating to see so many injuries, not be able to progress, and do all those injuries really bring the team together? And what's the atmosphere like when you have those injuries and missing players?
I think it's been frustrating because coming off, like you mentioned before, a fantastic second season where we finished 9th. I think the ambition was to at least try and replicate what we did in the second season, if not do any better. But that has been a really tough challenge with injuries and key positions. He might go a bit unnoticed, but a player like Rico Henry is irreplaceable. He's a standout player. You can say the same thing about Ivan Toney. And when you then add Brian Mbuemo, Matthias Jensen, creative players on that injury list who was out for that spell where the results weren't great, obviously it's very frustrating. But as I said, I feel like the team is starting to get together. A lot of injured players are back now available. So we are very optimistic and hopefully better results will come and more points on the board.
Great. I hope so. And so Devin Heffer sort of said, how's it been mentally for the team having to deal with all these injuries and suspensions? How does that work in the squad?
It's a tough thing mentally for players individually, but also as a team. You definitely feel the difference in the mood when you come into the training ground. depending on your winning or losing. But yeah, Thomas has the 24-hour rule where you can moan and complain and be angry for 24 hours, or on the opposite, you can also be happy and celebrate for 24 hours. But after that, it's a new game and it's a new day of work. And I think up until this point, we've been quite good at using that rule.
Yeah, and just touching on that 24-hour rule, I'm sort of interested. What would happen if someone broke that rule? Has anyone broken it?
I tend to break it sometimes. I'm sure he does as well. It's a guideline and it's a principle, but of course there are losses that can be harder to accept, and also wins that it's hard to get your arms down after 24 hours. So I think, for example, the Aston Villa game where we were playing brilliantly, up leading 1-0, and then just chaos occurred, and we got a red card. They were fighting, conceding 2 goals in the last 10 minutes, where you feel like, how did that happen? And that sort of kickstarted the period we're in right now, or were in. I think now after winning, of course, hopefully we're in a better run. But that sort of kickstarted it, and after a loss like that, it's hard to just forget it 24 hours after. You might need 48 hours. But yeah, so it happens from time to time that people break the rules, if you can say that.
Okay, understood. And maybe just staying on injuries for a couple more questions, if I can. A good one, I think, from Carleen Bender saying, how do you manage pain sort of before, after, and during games?
I mean, pain when it comes to injuries and just pain in general is 2 different things. The pain you have before a game is mostly from like hits, or you get some pain relief to take the worst, to take the edge of it, and so you can complete the game. And I would say we've got a really good team when it comes to try and eat up the pain inside and get on with it, and try and do everything we can for the team. Of course, there's a limit where you need to also consider your own health and the risk of a longer term injury. But it's something the further you get in your career, the older you get, the more experience you get, the more knowledge you have about your own body, and therefore you, of course, also learn how to react in different situations.
Yeah, and on that, I think we see, when you go around on the celebration laps, shirts off, and you seem to have all this technology strapped to you. Is that monitoring sort of your load, and are you potentially subbed or taken off or told to back down by the team if that's sending certain data?
Yeah, exactly. It shows it shows a lot of metrics on our physical numbers, and they also use that as an indicator of whether a player is tired or not. So you can get subbed based on how your numbers are, but most likely it's Thomas' decision on whether you play good or bad.
Okay. And then obviously a question from Tony Ryan. The season has often seen players playing sort of between 9 and 15 minutes of extra time this year. Has that had an effect on how you've managed the game, and sort of potentially how you've dealt with the injuries, or has it actually affected injuries by having to have that extra stress on you for those extra minutes?
I mean, it's a fair argument because of the list of injuries that's been in not only in our team but in general in the Premier League. I think all of the clubs has been hit pretty hard by the injuries, and that's one of the changes that's been made. So that means you're longer time on the pitch, you're longer time on your feet, and there is longer time for things to happen. I don't know if that's the only reason, but it could be a fair argument. And it's been a bit difficult to cope with the long injury time. Sometimes it's quite a big change, no doubt about it.
Okay. Maybe turning just to a little bit of you and the club and Thomas. I get there's questions from Yehuda Ankanina, Gary Watson, Lars Bo Hansen, which really goes around what makes you feel at home the most about the club, and do you really get that sense of the sort of community of Brentford fans as players?
I think there was a lot of really nice thing mentioned before in the video that I was lucky enough to see, that actually touched me a little bit. And I think sometimes we football players, we're too busy or we think we're too busy. We're probably not compared to a lot of other people in the world, but sometimes it's nice to just check out and see all these things that are going on behind the scenes. And it makes me really proud to be a captain of a club who has all these other activities going on. So yeah, you definitely have the sense that this is a family club. It's built on core principles and values, which we often talk about, like togetherness. And yeah, I feel like there's a close link between the fans and the players. We feel that going onto the pitch, being there after, or the fans waiting outside for players after the game. I hope they have a feeling as well that it's very appreciated, and the players most of the time stop up and sign autographs and take pictures. So we definitely appreciate it, and we definitely feel it as well.
Yeah, and can I ask Christian, maybe the lap after we win a game, who instigated that? Was that the players? Was it the coaching staff? How did that come about?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. It's something
You
that I
could have taken
started on.
credit for that then. You could have taken
Yeah, I
credit
could
for
have. I should have. I should just said, yeah, that was me. I feel like uh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think maybe Peter Gilliman has something to do with it. But yeah, it started. I can't even remember when it happened. It definitely happened the first season, I think, in the Premier League, didn't it? And then it's just become a thing. And now you got the Ivan Toney, Brian and Mbeumo song. You got the the Free from Desire, and I think it's something people talk about leaving the place. They say, "What a nice atmosphere!" They were really celebrating the win. It's a memory for them, isn't it? And I think that's a positive thing and a really good thing to have.
That's great. Question from Sarah Harding. What's the best thing about playing for Brentford FC for you? And we said this is now the club you've played most for, so there must be something that is the best thing about playing for Brentford for you.
I think it's the confidence I have playing for this club. I think it's how how I feel stepping on the pitch wearing the Brentford shirt, how I feel coming into the training ground every day. It's something I look forward to. It's something I I definitely don't take it for granted, because I've been in other clubs and I've tried other emotions and feeling when it comes to my football. I've not enjoyed it as much as I do now. So all these things that the last 4.5 years has built up to be is something I just cherish every day, really. And hopefully I've got a few more years left with this feeling.
I think most of us hope that as well. So I think we're all agreed on that. Now, at the risk of getting you in trouble tomorrow morning at training with Thomas, Mark Harvey wants to know: is it possible to describe what's so effective about Thomas as a coach?
I'm off tomorrow, so he can't really say anything tomorrow. Okay. I think it's his player/team management. He's a very honest coach. He's very optimistic. He always sees the positive in things. He's charismatic in his own way. I know the fans love him. I know the media loves him because he always gives an honest answer. And I think he's just very good at being himself and not trying to be anyone else. He's clear in his concepts when it comes to what he wants on the pitch, but definitely also outside the pitch. And that's why it's easy for new players to integrate. It's easy to have a winning culture, a culture where people work very hard, and that's all instigated by him, and obviously the administration and Phil Giles, Matthew Benham. It's just a really well-run club from top to bottom, and that makes it easier for us players.
Great. And you touched on Thomas and sort of his involvement with the fans. And we hear you and the players, Thomas and the players, talk about the support from the fans. You mentioned that in terms of the atmosphere. Can you tell us a bit about how you actually experience the atmosphere on the pitch as a player?
You can just sense when something triggers the fans to just be there 5 or 10% more. I think sometimes it also has to come from us players. It's a tackle, it's a finish, it's a goal, maybe it's a clearance, and it could be Ben clearing the ball and the fans screaming me or Brian hitting it in the top bin, something like that. But you just feel the difference when they turn it up. And I think the games in the evening under the floodlights, they they're very special. But sometimes Saturday, 3 p.m. it can be a bit flat, not only in our stadium and old stadium, and there it's definitely up to us to also start something for the fans to really get behind us, because we all know how rocking the stadium can get, and it's a pleasure to play on when it's like that.
That's great. Just maybe turning on to a few questions about you as captain, if that's okay. You obviously took on the captain role this year. Interested to know, how has that changed your match day routine and responsibilities?
Not a lot, actually. I think I've tried to remain the same player and person that I was. I always have I don't know if you can call it like a motto, but it's something to live by. If you're chosen as a captain, there's a reason for it. And that's just the way you are, the way you play, and you shouldn't think too much about it or try and overdo things, overthink things. And I've felt it's been quite natural for me this season. Obviously, when you lose and you are in a rough spell, you take it probably more personal, and it's a bit heavier for you because you feel a bigger responsibility. Maybe it's hard to know how they feel, but I know how I felt when I wasn't a captain. I think when you're wearing the armband, it's only natural that you take a bit more responsibility for whatever happens on the pitch. On the other side, it's very rewarding when things are running and the results are coming your way. And yeah, I mean, you got the huddle before the game where it was always punters who spoke up, and we still have the same huddle, but I've tried and changed it. So I do a talk, and then another player take a talk, and then I do the talk, and then another player take the talk. And I think that's the thing I would like to continue doing, because it's really nice to hear other players speak about what we should do in this game in particular, and it's nice to hear that other players also have a lot to say, and I'm very good at it, at giving that last motivational speech. So that's maybe one of the few things that I've done a bit differently this season. But other than that, it's been pretty much the same.
Okay. Question from Alison Ali Malali. Do you lose the toss a lot, or do you choose to kick towards the West Stand in the first half a lot? My kids go nuts when we swap. So I think you need to answer this seriously, Christian.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to upset any kids out there. But so usually when we play at home, the opponents get to choose the color of the coin. So I might lose a lot, but I have not made any active decision on it. So I do sometimes lose the coin toss, and then the players or the opposition exactly wants to get that reaction of the fans, so they swap ends. But obviously we would always like to attack towards the West End in the second half.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And then as skipper, there was obviously a football match on Saturday. A goal was scored. There was, some debate about where the ball was and the phone. Did you see that? And I guess, what would you have done if you'd been captain of the opposition in that scenario?
You talk about Ivan's goal, I assume.
Oh, yeah, goal, yeah, obviously.
Or just any goal, yeah.
Any goal, a random goal that may have been moved.
Yeah,
slightly.
might have occurred. Okay, yeah. I from where I was sat, I could tell that the angle didn't look right. You could just tell that it was quite an easy execution. Not like don't want to take anything away from the goal, but it was just like a placed shot around the wall, and the ball was not even near the post. It was quite central in the goal. Yeah. And you wondered how did the keeper set up the wall so bad for Ivan to just make a pass around the wall. Yeah. But yeah, then their bench started to go nuts, and I went very crazy at the fourth because they didn't interfere and VAR didn't check anything. But they also realized it too late looking at their video. So in the end, it was too late for anyone to do anything, and Ivan was the only one laughing, I guess. Not the only one. We were laughing as well at celebrating. Yeah. And just to add another comment to it, for me, if you ask me, it's football IQ at its very highest, and you might think some might think it's bending the rules, but you see players try and bend the rules all the time, and it's we all want that edge. We all want to win, and especially nowadays with all the cameras, with all the video assistant referees, it should be impossible. But to find that little gap where either did something that's in the gray zone, it's very, very smart, and it's football IQ at its highest, and it's something that we've, I guess, missed as well, because it was the difference.
Yep. No, thank you for that. There's a question from a fellow Dane, Skip Pedersen, and we seem to have a record number of Danish questions, so thank you for that. So a question from a fellow Dane: to what extent did you feel prepared to become captain of the club? Do you have any role models as captains from your own career?
I think if it's a Danish fan asking the question, then Thomas Kahnberg, who's my former captain in Brøndby, was a big role model for me. He came back to Brøndby at the same time as me and had a really good career playing abroad. So the way he was in the changing room and the way he was speaking to everyone, the way he was as a character and as a person, is something I admired and something I try and live up to, try and do some of the same things that he did. So, but I've been very lucky with having a lot of very good captains. So you try and take small bits and pieces from everyone, and then there are probably some things you don't really like or don't agree with, and then you leave that out, and then you create your own captain, and then a young lad with full of potential of being a leader, he will look at me and like some of the things I do and take some of it away, and that's the whole evolution of leadership and captaincy.
Yeah, and I guess there's probably two elements to this question. What style of leader would you say you are, and I guess how has everyone reacted to you becoming captain? Because off the pitch, we're presuming it's a different approach and different style to Pontus, but we may be completely wrong. But how has that been received by the rest of the squad?
I mean, it's not like in school where you meet up with the teachers twice a year and they tell you what you've done wrong and what you've done right. So I can only say that I have a feeling of backing from my players and from the players in the change room. I have a feeling that they support the way I try and lead. And I've also said this many times, and I often say it before we go into a game, that maybe there might be one player wearing the armband, but you need much more than one captain in a team or on a pitch. So I think there is a lot of good leaders in the team, and I hope that they also like the way it's been with me as a captain. I don't think it's something that people think too much about. I think even last year I wore the armband for maybe 15 games, felt like a captain because of Pontus' unfortunate injuries.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel too new to me, to be honest. So far I've been pleased with how the players have reacted and also how they've stepped up to the challenge of being vice captains, if you can put it like that.
Yeah. And that sort of, I think that answer probably leads into a question that Tom Drake sort of has asked, sort of saying the role of captain, seeing you leading the players to work as a unit, greatness. He's interested in, where do you draw your inspiration from as a captain?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I touched the subject earlier about looking at the captains you've had previously, trying to do some of the same things. I try and lead. I try and get inspiration from books, from podcasts, the high performance podcasts I listen to now and then. I think there's some really good leaders in there. Listen to James Milner's one recently, who really also touched some subjects about the difference being young and more experienced, and how you can affect a player's career with very small words or just a little conversation on 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So I do try and take inspiration in, but I also try and be present and try and just be whatever comes natural. So yeah, it's a fine balance.
Okay, and I assume you and all the rest of the squad have listened to the Phil Giles High Performance podcast as well to get some insight into him. So in terms of other skipper questions, Mark Melfi, what's been your most thrilling moment as skipper?
Thrilling moment. We've had a few very good moments. Like I said, when you win a game, it becomes extra special when you're a skipper. So when we won at Stamford Bridge for the third time in a row, I thought that was a special moment, leading out the team. But actually, for me, the biggest moment, at least wearing the armband, I know I was not the club captain at the time; it was Pontus. But when we played Liverpool at home and won 3-1, where I was captain for my, I think, fifth or sixth game, that was so far the most special moment for me, wearing the armband, and that was something I'll never forget. That was just such a special game in many ways.
Yeah. Nigel Miller is interested in, since your time at BFC, who's been your toughest opponent?
As a team,
or individual, I guess.
Individual, I think Kevin De Bruyne. And we've actually done really well against City, but he's a player that for me is out of this world. And he can just do everything. And he works hard as well. I think that's when you have so talented players who are so good offensively, when they also work hard, they become deadly. And he showed his class against Newcastle again when he came on after a long injury break. So I've been, I don't know if you can say fortunate or unfortunate enough to play him a few times, and he's scored a few as well. And for me, he's a player I really admire.
Okay. And again, sort of touching on injuries, obviously as a result of injuries, we've had a lot of younger players making their debut. What's your role as skipper in terms of encouraging those youngsters who are getting their name on the Rob Rowan board?
I think feeling what I felt when I was 19, and then try and explain or try and tell them that it's okay to feel this. I've been there. It's okay to be a bit nervous. I've been there. It's okay if you make mistakes. We had Yamo, for example, young Ukrainian midfield player who has really played a good season so far. When you think about how inexperienced he is and was, and before his first start against Arsenal, I think it was in the Premier League, I was just trying to. That was one of the things I said in the huddle was like, Yamo, you just enjoy today. That's the only mistake you can make is not enjoying, because I don't care if you lose the ball. There will be 10 other players who will be there really willing to save your ass. And he really looked like a guy who enjoyed it. He might have been really nervous, but I saw a player enjoying the occasion. And because there are so many emotions in football, and I've struggled with emotions as well and being nervous from a young age. If you can teach some of the young lads that it's okay to be nervous and to accept the feelings you have in your body. I think again we spoke about try and affect people's players' career from a young age. That's where your experience can be an advantage.
Oh, great. And have you set yourself any targets or challenges on becoming captain? What does success as a captain look like for you?
A success for me is always when we I mean, obviously when we win, but sometimes that's also too black and white. I think when we play a good game, we perform well. You can see that we played as a unit. We've been working hard. We've done the things that we've trained about. Then I look at myself and say I've done what I could as a captain to make the team work as a unit. So, but I also think you sometimes there are so many puzzles that has to come into one piece. Sometimes you can overdo your own role and overthink it and be like, I have to do this, otherwise other players are not doing this. But it's too many minds, it's too many players, it's too many puzzles that has to fit for everything to work together. But yeah, I think I feel happy obviously when we perform and when we win. Boiling it down to a few things, and then over a course of a whole season, there's always obviously much more things, but that's probably the highlights. Yeah.
And Christian, you may have answered this, but I just wanted to maybe get a sense of it in sort of one answer. How important is actually the role of a captain in a team? Certainly in England, it seems to be a big focus, as you can probably tell from all these questions. Everyone always seems to be obsessed about who's the England captain or who's the captain of a team, or talks about X will be a future captain of. How important is it really for a team to have a captain, and for what that captain can bring the team?
I think it is important to have a captain, of course. We spoke about responsibility. It has to be someone who's willing to take responsibility when things are not going well. So easy to take it when it goes well, but in the periods here where it's not been easy. It's very important that you as a captain can take a bit more responsibility to also lift some of the weight off other players. And then it's just a big privilege, I have to say, a big honor. People call you Skip in the everyday when you come in, staff members, players, and I think honestly it's something I will remember for the rest of my life. This feeling of being a club captain. I'm very, very lucky to try this, and something that will benefit me, I think, and help me also in the future life after football, depending on what sort of business I'll decide to work in.
Great. Maybe moving to a few other questions, which probably got slightly different varieties, but I guess we've got a question from Oliver Chaplin. Ben Mee, as you mentioned before, has obviously been outspoken about the climate crisis. Has this inspired you or a squad to start any sustainable behaviours or change any things you're doing as a team?
I haven't seen what he's been spoken about. Can you? What is that exactly?
Yeah, because Ben's obviously quite focused on sustainability. I think when he signed for the club, there's a big thing about he used an electric car to come down, and he's did interviews about how he's trying to do all he can to focus on sustainability and reducing the climate crisis and climate change we're seeing. So I was just interested if that has permeated into the dressing room. That's what Oliver Chaplin was, I think, sort of asking.
I mean, you definitely see initiatives taken in and around the club. As you see more and more players preferring their electric cars than their big engine cars. You still have some players, of course, driving in other cars, but all the charges are occupied when you come in, so that's a good sign, I guess. And then you've of course got all the, and might be a small thing, but all the bins separation. So you throw things and recycle, and we had a big integration of sustainable bottles, which we are still trying to work on, because there's also, if people don't have their bottle, then they don't get hydrated and they can't perform. So there's this balance between sustainability and performance, I guess, that you also have to hit. But no, it's something that people do think about and something you can see the club thinking about. So that's definitely positive.
Yeah, no, thank you. Question from one of the BU board, actually, Colleen Wong. You're my 8-year-old son's hero. How do you manage to balance work and family life?
First of all, thank you. And it's not the easiest thing in the world. I have a fantastic wife who really spends a lot of time with the children, with me being away, being alone here in another country where her family is living is tough thing. But it's definitely trying to switch on and off, switching into football, switching into the family when you get home. But it's tough. It's hard for me, and I do take work with me home, and I do sit sometimes and play with my kids and think about the weekend picture or the game we just lost, and it's an injury of work, I guess. But it's something I'm still trying to develop, because the more present I can be around the family, the more I benefited from it also in my work time. So I'm still learning, and I've definitely not completed that area.
Is there, can you give us a sense of what a normal day for Christian the footballer and Christian at home looks like? Is there such a thing as a normal day?
A normal day for me is waking up 6:30, giving my son breakfast, driving him to the nursery, going to training, do my bits, gym after, pick up the little one from nursery, get home, play with him and my 6-month-old baby now, and talking with my wife, of course, bring them to bed, and then do something with her in the evening, and that will be a pretty regularly normal day for me.
Pretty good. Sounds like you got a decent balance there, Christian.
Yeah.
And on that, do you get spotted day to day? Has fame caught up with you?
I wouldn't say it's caught up with me, even though Brentford is a fantastic club. It's not the biggest of the clubs in England, so it's a fan base also in the developing phase, where you can feel that the last 3-4 years has really boosted our fan base, and you do get recognized more and more. I was in Lanzarote last week when we had our break, and there was a few Brentford fans there as well. So that was probably the first time where I was away from London or Denmark, and there was Brentford fans coming over to me. So that's a nice thing, and in general, people are very, very friendly, very, very nice. So please, whenever and if you see me, then come for a chat and a talk. I think it's a really nice thing to do.
Great. That sounds like you're giving permission to every fan to come and sort of buy you a beer, I think. Turning to a few questions about you and sort of, I guess, your game. Peter Watkins was interested. When you face off in a training session, which Bees player do you have the most difficulty defending?
Question. There's a few. If I'm, yeah, there's definitely more than one. But if I had to highlight one, I would say in our current squad is Josh Da Silva. If he gets around you, or you have him in a 1v1, and you know he's going to his left foot, but you still can't stop him somehow. And trust me, he will be like signing a new player when he really gets up to speed. And there's a reason he's wearing number 10 on his back, and he will be such a game changer for us. He still has his best yet to come, so I'm picking him.
Okay, that's perfect. Steve Reardon's interested. Since coming to the Premier League, you seem to have taken your game to another level season by season. So what do you attribute this to? What are you doing to improve yourself?
I do quite a few things. I'm very aware of the mental part of it. I got a mental coach I talk to. I've got my own physical coach as well, which the club is very transparent with the club, so they also know about it. But who makes me weekly programs in terms of how my training should be, how my diet should be, how yeah, how my training should be and my exercises. So I try and invest in all the other things around football, for me to have as long as a good and a fit career as possible. Because when you're confident in your own body and your own mind, I think it's easier to also perform. So those sort of things that I've been working with has had a positive effect on my performance as well. And yeah, then I think sometimes you also just improve your level when you play against better players, you play with better players, and it's really nice to see also that you as an individual are able to raise your level to what's needed in this league, which I think is the best one in the world.
Yeah. Got a question from one of the people listening, which I think built on that, from Jeff Buckingham. Which of the young emerging players has impressed you most?
The younger players.
Yeah.
Mm. There's been, I think it's hard being a young player, of course, to come up in a first team squad in the Premier League. I think a player like Yamo, who's had other things to deal with than football, coming from Ukraine, knowing what his country and his family has been put to and has had to deal with. When you then see him work and the way he comes into training, always positive, smiling, talking with people, trying to progress his English, improve it. He's just working so hard, and I think he's deservedly got a lot of games this season, both from the start, but also coming off on as a sub. He's probably the biggest surprise to me, because I didn't see that coming in the beginning of the season. But that's definitely one of the things where you see, okay, this is hard work. This is a player that's determined to play for something bigger than football, and that's admirable. Yeah, he's probably my standout player. And then I think also a young player like Keane Lewis Potter, who had a tricky first season. I think he's starting to find his feet now and looking really, really sharp. So he's probably my second player.
Okay. And we also have another question from Denmark, from Jesper Schmidt, which sort of touches on that as well, asking you to comment on the performance of the youth squad. And I guess maybe it's a question as to how much do you see the youth team as the first team?
I guess you see the B team, who has a lot of young players, but then there's also academy teams that we don't really get to see a lot. Often the B team players are training with us or against us, and you could definitely see their talent. But it's something that it takes time, and just for them to have a sniff at around the first team is fantastic. But they've got really good trainers as well, both coaches with both Neil and Sam Saunders. I've been lucky enough to try and train with them a couple of times, and it's really fantastic how they get so much out of a team who doesn't play for anything, if that makes sense. They don't play for points, they don't play in the league, but they're still training extremely hard. So that's impressive.
Yep. Jerome Day, he's saying, Christian, you're fantastic at winning tackles, as we had in the stats, 5th most tackles in the Premier League this season. He said, what do you do to prepare for this? How do you, I guess, train and prepare for just being good at tackles and winning tackles?
I think it's an anticipation thing. It's something about timing. I've never been the most physical player. I think Thomas was one of the first managers who told me that I need to learn how to tackle if I wanted to be a player at the highest level. And becoming a defensive midfield player under a coach named Alexander Zorniger, I more often ended up in situations where I had to tackle or intercept the ball. And yeah, I embraced the role and enjoyed the challenge as well. So I think it's maybe something I always were able to, but didn't really think I had the quality. And it's obviously nice to. I think in the first season, the Prem, I finished as the player with the highest amount of tackles, and now I'm a bit low. Apparently, I'm only 5th, which is not good enough. I'll have to tackle my way up in the last half of the season. But yeah, it's something I actually enjoy, and for me, a tackle can also be as beautiful as making a dribble.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. A few more questions if we've got time, sort of maybe 10 more minutes or so, if that's okay, Christian.
Yeah, that's fine. No worries.
So John Hannon, this is the 3rd season in the Premier League. Doesn't look like it's getting any easier either. But has this being the 3rd season changed the way that the team views opponents, and what's been the biggest learnings for the team over the 3 seasons?
It definitely doesn't get any easier, and I I think that the hardest thing about the 3rd season is that the other teams know what they're facing now. They know what we are about when it comes to our set pieces and the way we defend. And that's also a reminder to us about keep developing and keep changing and keep optimizing the things that we can do better. So that's probably the most challenging thing. And I think when you look at the teams going down last year with Leicester, Southampton, and Leeds, it's 2 established Premier League and arguably one of the biggest clubs in England. That's definitely an indication of how hard it is to play in this league. And that leads on to my next thing, is that please don't take it for granted that we play in the Premier League, because you can easily get used to the Premier League fixtures, because it can go quick if we don't, as a team, as a club, like I said, keep try and challenge ourselves and optimize things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess that sort of also plays on in terms of the has the mystique of playing at famous old stadiums like Old Trafford and Anfield faded? Are there any away grounds that have any particular meaning? I mean, does anyone miss Rotherham away, for example?
I don't think we miss it. There was also something special about coming to a small stadium in the Championship. But no, it's more fun to play at Old Trafford or Anfield. Yeah, it's been special, of course. And I wouldn't say you get used to it, but somehow you do, which is dangerous, because you still have to really appreciate the fact that we do play in the Premier League and we do play against the bigger teams. I think the atmospheres around Goodison, St. James Park, Ellen Road when Leeds were there, it's just, yeah, next level.
Great. A few questions about Denmark in particular and some Danish football things, if I can. So Niall O'Connor, what's the main difference between Danish and English football at the top level?
Just the quality. The quality is just higher. The players are better. The tempo of the game is much quicker. The pitches are better. The stadiums are bigger. It's just like it's just everything times 10. So but that doesn't mean that the Danish league and Danish football is not a very good place. and you see players from the Danish league coming into English football as well and doing really well. My former team, I've obviously followed the keeper Mads Hermansen, went to Leicester and plays there, and they look to get promoted now into the Premier League. So there are definitely players in the Danish league who can also play at this level. But if you look at it as a whole, there's just everything is just better and quicker.
Okay, and Liam Kelly, what are your hopes and expectations for the Danish team in the upcoming Euros?
Yeah, it'll be exciting playing England as well. So hopefully we're doing better than we did at the World Cup. That was not a pretty tournament for us. But no, it was a challenging qualification for us. We were big time favorites, but almost didn't make it. So
We lost to
we
Kazakhstan, didn't you?
we lost to Kazakhstan, and mm, talk about feelings and mental health in football. That's some of the I didn't I it took a long time for me to get over that, and I probably when we qualified it's like okay, it happened, but we're still going to the Euros. But I was sleepless for a couple of nights afterwards because I was embarrassed about it, and it's part of football, I guess. You have these over a career, you have these freak results, freak games where unpredictable things just happen, and that was one of them. But we do look forward to it. It's Slovenia, England, and Serbia, I think, in our group, and it'll be Germany who hosts it. It'll be very different to the World Cup in Qatar, and we'll have a lot of Danish fans there, family around, so it'll be hopefully just a fantastic summer. I'm really excited about it.
No. And Trevor Williams says, are you looking forward to playing against Ivan Toney in the Euros?
Yeah, I am. Hopefully, I'll nick his shirt after the game. But no, I hope he will have a really good run of form now in the next 4 or 5 months, and then I'll see him in Germany.
Yeah. And Simon Hoyle, sort of touching on you mentioning Brøndby, do you have a favourite club that you support in football and otherwise in any other sport?
I was supporting Real Madrid when I was younger. That was probably the team I was supporting with the most with the most of my heart. Then you are more, and you're a player. You're working for a club. You're not a fan of the club. You of course get certain emotions towards the club. And now Brentford holds a special place in my heart. Brøndby holds a special place in my heart. But I wouldn't say I'm a fan. What a lot of you guys have and what the fans of a club has is something I envy quite a lot, because it comes from a child, I guess, when you were 4 or 5 years old and your dad gave you that shirt because he was a fan. It's something very generational, and that is a very special thing. And I unfortunately can't really say I'm a fan of club compared to some of the other.
Okay. Maybe a few quick fire sort of questions perhaps now as well. So Danny Saunders, John Gosling, what's been your favourite goal? Could be yours or could be the team's.
Yeah.
You've only got 6 to choose from, Christian, so don't
so I'm not going to go with my own then. I think first goal or second goal against Burnley at home, because also after a really tough period, and then we made a fantastic team goal, and I think the second goal was Brian hitting the fantastic goal into the top corner, and that kickstarted our run of form. We won 3 games on the bounce, 4 out of 6, and that was just 2 really good goals. Especially the first one was with Neil combining with Brian and Wissa. So that's probably one of them. It's hard to really, come up with it, but I think that stands out as one of them this season.
Okay, great. Gary Murphy in Westbrook, what's been your favourite bees moment, personal and team, in your time while at Brentford?
Yeah, I mentioned the Liverpool game last year,
Yep.
which was very special for me. I think obviously when you play the first Premier League game for a club and you win 2-0 against Arsenal, you score a goal.
Yep.
That also is hard to beat. So that's it's one of them. I will sit with my boys one day and watch that game, I think. They probably won't be interested, but I'll force them to look at it and have them next to me, because that's a special memory to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I don't think you get many other Brentford fans sort of saying that that's not one of their greatest moments. It was spectacular. What would you rather achieve, cup final or a European place?
Mm, European place, I think.
Okay.
Because the cup final, and as you said, a cup win, maybe a cup win would do it, but because then you get the European place. But
Yeah,
no.
but this is Brentford. It's cup final. We wouldn't say cup win. It's like, it's Brentford. Um, so Peter Brown, Tom McCann, way, 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 way in the future. Any thoughts about football management or coaching after your playing career?
Yeah, I could see myself coaching, and I will do my batches in the nearest future. I probably won't do it straight after. Will also try and enjoy the free time you get after being a player, but further down the line, I could definitely see myself coaching, yeah, and enjoy it.
Okay, and then just to wrap up, we've got sort of three very quick fire, sort of more light-hearted questions, if that's okay. What's your favorite cheese?
Parmesan cheese.
Okay. What's your go-to karaoke song?
I will always love you.
Okay. And Barbie or Oppenheimer?
Oppenheimer. I haven't watched Barbie. Never will.
And then just to wrap up, we've got one final one from member Victor Bolter. No question. Just keep the team united in close touch with the crowd. We all love you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for having
Christian,
me on.
it's been our pleasure, and that's been fantastic insight into so many things. Conscious of your time, I know it's precious in the evening, so thank you. Can't thank you enough. So on behalf of Bees United and all the members, I think we wish obviously the team sort of best for the future. We're confident that, as you say, it's just going to get better and better from here on, but not complacent.
No, exactly. I'm sure it will. And yeah, thank you very much for having me, and keep doing all the fantastic things you do. It's really nice to get an insight of it as well. So take care, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the season. I promise you it'll be good.
Thank you, Christian.
Bye. Bye.